Hey everyone, so I just spent the past 4 days working on a brand new game for the Game Maker's Toolkit Game Jam. The theme this year was Loop, and I've been so excited to make a game again ever since I entered the competition last year. For those of you that don't know, it's a competition where you're given 4 days in order to make a game that fits the theme, and this is the game that I ended up creating. Obviously, it's not perfect, and there's a lot of things I would have liked to have done differently, but over the past 4 days, I really feel like I've learnt a lot, so let's take a look at that development journey and my descent into madness as the days went on.
Welcome to GMTK Game Jam 2025. This is a crazy fast game-making marathon
Where you have just 4 days to make a game that fits a theme. And this year's theme is just one word: loop.
So we had the theme, Loop. I grabbed my game dev notebook and I started coming up with some ideas. None of those ideas would carry forward to the first proper day of development because I tried a few experiments and the game just was not coming together at all. So I think I've came up with a good idea. I can't quite picture how it's going to work as a game just yet, but I was basically coming up with a mashup of several different games that use loops in their gameplay. So Nights into Dreams was an obvious first choice because you use the loop to spin around and capture the enemies. I was also thinking about Line Rider, the way you can make the course and have loops and have something actually moving down around the loops. And then I was kind of thinking, like, what sort of style do I want this in? What sort of graphics? Maybe something like Mischief Makers, like a really cartoony kind of 2.5D style with the sort of level with the different pegs on them. And then thinking of pegs made me think a little bit of Peggle. So using all of those different games as an idea, as a concept, I've come up with this, which is like a level full of pegs. Kind of also reminds me of the Donkey Kong minigame from Nintendo Land, but you'll control a little character, maybe a fairy or something, like Nights into Dreams, that flies around. You can pick up ribbon and use it to tie it around the pegs by drawing loops. That's where the Line Rider idea comes in. So you'll build the ribbon around the course, something will drop onto the course and you have to get it to a certain point in the stage. I think it's going to be like a level by level puzzle game with maybe rope physics, the way that you can pull the different strands of ribbon to lay the levels out. And I was thinking maybe because it's ribbon, the enemies can be like flying pairs of scissors that come down and cut the ribbon. And to kill the enemies, just like in Nights into Dreams, you actually have to circle around them. So you have to drop what you're doing and fly up and circle around them, and then that will make them disappear from the stage and you can get back to actually building the level. And then when you're done, you can either press a button or like fly up to something and trigger something, and it will start the level, and you'll have built this like contraption where you get something from one side of the screen to the other. I haven't quite figured out what that is yet, but I'm going to jump into Godot now and see whether I can play around with some rope physics, maybe get it so that the rope can be tied around different pegs, and then maybe apply some physics to that so it's actually got gravity and stuff. That's probably the first thing, just get the rope idea working, the rope concept, and then I'll work out how to create a little flying character. So that's my idea so far. We'll see whether we stick to it. It does seem a little bit complicated, but hopefully I'll come up with a really easy way of selling it. So that's where we're at the minute. So I basically ended up scrapping that early idea completely, and I spent most of the day complaining to my fiance that I just could not get anything that made any sense as a game. So she actually helped me flesh out my ideas into something that would actually work as a game. Literally the only thing in my head was just flying around and drawing circles. That's not a game. Where's the game? But the game did come, so let's take a look at how I got on the first proper day of development. Hey everyone, it's day 2 of the GMTK Game Jam, and yesterday I got way carried away with the concept for the game, and today and a bit of last night I actually ended up completely remaking all of my ideas for the game. So here's some of the ideas from yesterday. I'll go over some of what those were and you can have a look at some of the first gameplay. But it was going to be way too complicated to turn that into anything playable in just 4 days. So I've simplified it a lot. In fact, I oversimplified it. This was another one of my ideas last night, which is basically just circling enemies. But then I thought, what is there to do after that? There isn't really anything. So I actually got the help of my fiancée Sarah, and we sat down and fleshed out some more ideas, and now the game looks more like this. So there's a bunch of things to collect in the level. I'm just working now on getting a area 2D to be able to pull a power up over towards the player in order for you to collect things once you kill the enemies. And the loop part of the game is the fact that you actually draw a path and loop around the enemy in order to kill them. There's a lot more going on in the game. It's going to feature a shop, hopefully, and it's going to have this like witches and wizards fantasy theme, and hopefully it's going to be really fun to play. The demo is kind of playable. It's probably not going to look anything like this in a few days' time, but I'm really excited to keep at it. And I was so excited to do this game jam and to get back into game development again that I actually booked the Thursday and Friday off work so I could have 2 full days of concentrating just on game dev. So I woke up early and treated it as if it was my job, and honestly, even though I really struggled with the actual development, just doing that and being able to focus entirely for 4 days on one thing was such a great opportunity, and I really feel like I've learnt a lot with the game engine. And I was also using this time not just to make a finished product, but to actually understand the engine and to understand some of the programming concepts a little bit better as well. So every time I got stuck, I would actually write down what I was trying to figure out in the engine, and then once I'd got it working in the game, I would actually come back to pen and paper and actually write down how I solved that, and then try and do it again without looking up any tutorials on the internet. And I feel like that really helped me solidify my understanding of some of the intricacies with the engine, because it's very different to anything that I've used in the past. It basically uses a node structure, and you can call signals from the nodes to interact with the different scripts. And if you've just come from an engine like I did, like Stencil, it's a completely foreign concept. So I spent the first day really struggling to figure out how to properly use the engine. I did use Godot for my game jam entry last year called Construction Chaos, but I kind of cheated in that one because I just used a built-in character controller and didn't really program anything for myself outside of just the ladder and the blocks falling. So I really wanted to go at this game from scratch and actually figure out everything as I went along. And I feel like I did learn a lot. And here's how the game looked at the end of day 2. Not really a game as such, but the concept was there and it was playable. Nearly halfway through the competition though, and there's still a lot more left to do. So let's see how day 3 went next. Good morning everyone, it's day 3 of the GMTK Game Jam, and I've got a list of things that I need to do today in order to get the game into a playable state with a start, a finish, and some actual challenge in there as well. I was really struggling yesterday to try and get the enemy movements working, and that actually took up most of the day, so I haven't made as much progress as I would have liked, but here's a look at how the game looked at the end of yesterday. And today I've got a list of things here. So first I'm going to start with a door that can open when you deposit a certain amount of material. So that's step 1, and there's also going to be a cauldron in the corner of the level that you can also put material into in order to spawn a boss. So that's the second thing I'll be working on. I also need to reduce the enemy projectiles a bit and make it a little bit easier because there are way too many at the minute. So there's that. There's adding more enemies to the scene. There's making the water enemy move and attack because that one doesn't move yet. Making the boss fight, and then making the ending screen. So when you finish the level and you take all the items back, depending on what you brought back with you, you can make various different items and they'll give you different points. And that'll probably be the game loop. It'll probably just be the one level. Maybe if I have time, once this level's sorted, I can kind of duplicate it and change some things and have a little level select screen to say go to level 1 or level 2. There was the idea of having different materials in the different levels, but I don't think that's going to happen in time. I also want to add controller support. I think that would be fun to play this kind of game because then you get that proper analog movement instead of the digital using the mouse and keyboard. I want to try and find some music and sound effects to add into the game, and there's a boost mechanic as well, which I've kind of half implemented. You can basically press a button to speed up, but at the minute you can just do that the entire time. So rather than just letting people constantly press that button and constantly move faster, there'll be a meter that fills up when you collect the cards basically, and that's how much boost you can use, and then when you hold the button down that meter will drain until you pick more cards up. So that's the plan for today. First things first, I'm going to make a door that opens when you go into the door with a certain amount of material. So Wish me luck. While I was struggling to figure out how to make some of these gameplay mechanics a reality, I stumbled across a really useful video that actually details the exact purpose of every single node in the game engine. So if anyone's considering checking out Godot for yourselves, I really recommend starting with this video first before you go into the engine, because it really gives you a good understanding of what's possible in the engine as a whole, and then you can kind of narrow down the bits that you want to actually work on. So for example, in my game, the way you draw the loops around the enemies is actually made using the Line 2D node. So most of this day was spent figuring out how the tile set works and how I could actually build the stage and actually advance through the level. And I also figured out how animations work as well, which was very confusing. The way you link the nodes and the signals is still kind of messy in my mind, but I did end up writing down how to do that, and now I can actually make sprites animate on command, which I'm very happy about, because that was one thing that I really didn't understand before starting this. Hey everyone, it's Saturday, and that means there's just one more full day left and then half a day on Sunday to get this game finished. I've just got out of the shower and I'm ready to sit down and get back to work, and today I think my plans are to create some sort of tutorial for the game, because it might not be immediately apparent what you actually need to do. So now that I've figured out how the tile set works, I'm going to make a new scene, inheriting the existing scene, and change up the scenery, maybe add in some text in the background to explain what you need to do, and make it a lot easier as well, so people can actually get to the end of that before they go into the main game, because I feel like it might be a little bit difficult. So that's one of my goals today. The other goal is to get the enemies moving properly, because they don't properly move across the screen yet, and to also get a boss fight when you deposit a certain amount of gold into the cauldron. I really want to be able to get the enemies to work. That's something that I'm still trying to get my head around. They seem to be glitching all over the place, and I at least want like 2 or 3 different movement mechanics. So that's today's task. Let's see how we get on. So I spent the final day making a tutorial level and finding a whole bunch of art assets to try and make the game look at least somewhat presentable. And that actually presented me with a massive challenge that I didn't even consider that I would encounter. The fact that these days the internet is so flooded with AI garbage that it was almost impossible to actually find sprites that were made by humans. It was so frustrating. Every time I would try and look on Google Images, the top page or two would all just be AI generated. I even got as far as downloading some thinking they were real, because they were off websites like DeviantArt or ArtStation, and it turns out that they were just created entirely in Mid-Journey. It was really frustrating. So in the end I found out that on itch.io you can actually look for game assets and filter out AI generated art. So I ended up getting a lot of really cool assets from itch.io and making a few myself, but I thought to speed up the process, and because I was making the game entirely on my own, I would have to rely on some outside help from somewhere. So it was really great that those assets were out there for me to use, and I also found a really cool music pack as well, which I actually think would do really well in a proper RPG. It actually sounds amazing. So the music was there, the art was there, the tutorial was there. Unfortunately, I didn't get as far as making the mechanic where you actually combine the ingredients at the end in order to make the items to sell. Instead, it just goes to a screen that says I ran out of time, basically. But even so, I had something that was fully playable from start to finish, and there was only a few hours left, so now it was time to export the game and get it uploaded to itch.io, and I did not realise that so much could go wrong in such a short space of time, and I really wish I'd actually tried exporting it sooner, because there were so many problems with the export that I couldn't have foreseen beforehand. The screen resolution wasn't right, it wouldn't upload to itch.io correctly, the Windows and Mac exports just did not work at all. I just didn't understand the export settings in Godot, so in the end I managed to get it so that it resizes with the screen, which does actually work, but there was another problem. There was about half an hour until the deadline, and for some reason the font that I'd used in the game works fine when I was playing it in Godot and testing it out in the game engine, but as soon as I exported it to HTML and opened it up in itch, all of the exclamation marks and commas and colons and everything that wasn't just a regular character of the alphabet was just this weird glitched character, and it completely ruined the entire game, and I had about 20 minutes to fix it. So I frantically went through and removed every bit of grammar from the entire game, and also downloaded a new font pack, so the UI isn't quite how I would like it, but I had about 10 minutes left, so I re-exported it and uploaded it to Itch again, and thank God it worked this time, because I was cutting it so close to the deadline, and I was honestly getting so stressed out at this point. So the game was up just in time for the deadline, and now it was time to make the itch.io page. So I tidied it up a little bit, I put the screenshots on there, pressed submit. The 4 days went by so fast, I could not believe that I got as much done as I did either, and I really enjoyed taking the time to actually properly focus on the game engine. So it's been a few days since the end of the jam. Let's take a look at how the game was received and check out some of the comments on the submission page. The first thing that I was kind of annoyed about, and I don't know why this has happened, but some of the screenshots don't work properly on the submission page. When you click on them, they come up perfectly fine, but for some reason the previews don't work, so I don't know whether that puts some people off checking out the game or not. But even so, I've got some great comments and some constructive criticism as well, which I was very much appreciative of. Obviously, I kind of know what's wrong with the game, but let's have a look and see what people had to say anyway. Fun game. Unfortunate it wasn't finished. Indeed. Not a bad little game. Movement would be better if the witch followed the mouse. That way you could use left and right to click and draw or dash. Honestly, well done. With a little more polish, it could make for an interesting game. I did consider using mouse controls, but I basically just ran out of time. I also considered having WASD as a control option instead of just the arrow keys, but again, ran out of time. Croverlord said he really enjoyed it, even if the ghost scared him, and Croverlord actually is someone that I had on stream on my other monitor while I was making my game, and his game looks really cool as well. It's this little game where you move the robot around, and I did play the full thing after the stream, and I really enjoyed watching his streams as well while I was doing my game. Here's the clip of him playing my game and getting scared at that ghost.
Go back to the start, else the ghost will come and... Oh! I see. Okay, great. You finished the level. To the cauldron.
And again here, someone else was scared of the ghost. Every witch is brave and fearless until time is up and death pursues you. The drawing mechanics are very cool. Really cool idea, like the loop-in for the attacking the enemies. It seems like the scope was a bit too ambitious, but it was still a very creative entry. Concept was really cool, even the unfinished game is fun to play. Great artistic game. I can't take any credit for the art, but thank you. The monster couldn't kill literally led me to death when I saw the witch. Good job. That was a cute little game, really loved the art. The only part that looked a little strange were the cards. They looked much higher pixel count. Yes, they were. That was just me not really understanding what I was doing, but yeah, they do look very much out of place. And I will take that into consideration with the next game, because I am actually one of those people that get really annoyed if the pixels are different sizes, and I fell into that trap with this one. I don't actually get the voting results until another few days' time, so I'll put them in the comments down below, because I still wanted this video to go out on Friday. So on the whole, I'm really proud of what I managed to accomplish in the time that I had, and I definitely recommend doing game jams as well. Even if you're just slightly curious about the idea of making a game, it's definitely worth giving it a go, and a game jam really lets you focus in for that specific amount of time. And I've seen some amazing results from people who this was even their first ever game jam, and some of the games are better than one that I made, and I even studied game design before I ended up getting my regular job. And if you want to hear about my game dev journey, all the way back from the start, the games I made as a kid all the way up until today, click the video up here. And if you're a game developer yourself as well, check out my Discord server. I actually have a section in there specifically for game development, and there's some amazing projects going on at the minute. So it would be amazing if you joined the Discord server and shared your project with all of the amazing RetroBreak community. That is it for this episode though. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all again very soon. Goodbye.